So here we are, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled against affirmative action. This is civil war. If civil war is what they want, let's give it to them. So this is more than just a video. This is a public service announcement, a neighborhood announcement, a hood-to-hood announcement. If segregation is what they want, because everybody know I'm pro-segregation, if segregation is what they want, let's give it to them. It's already deceptive to say that any American should not be discriminated against based on the color of their skin. But yet the same people that say that have the same moral compass that says that black Americans are not Americans. Blacks are not American. They forgot 3/5 of a man. The Supreme Court is an arbitrator of racism systems. But good, this is a great and a pinnacle for historically black colleges and universities. If you are a black dad, a black mother, grandmother, auntie, cousin, uncle, send your kid, send that child you caring for to an HBCU. These selective universities, we don't need them. This is civil war. Asian Americans is a scapegoat. Yo, Asians, specifically China, owns over 80% of asset-backed securities of the United States. Let me tell you what that means. Break it down more simply. Every debt in America, every debt that's taken out is turned into a loan. That loan is put into a bond. That bond is sold to U.S. foreign governments. So when you talk about United States debt and capital investments, U.S. foreign investors are predominant in capital investments. Capital investments also includes the infrastructure in the United States, which the UAE and China also are major financiers of. So when you talk about manufacturing, when you talk about toll roads, when you talk about highways, when you talk about major infrastructure projects, when you talk about banking systems, banking institutions, whether venture capital or consumer, you have foreign investment that are the predominant owners and stakeholders of these sectors. These sectors that make up the U.S. economy. So when they talk about Asian Americans being discriminated and prejudiced against in the college and university admission process, I don't see how. Hey, my message to Asians, I'm going to say the same thing that white America, that Asian America, that Latino America tells black Americans constantly, that they learn from white America. Work harder. Work harder. Be better. Do more. Get more proactive. Stop victim shaming yourself. Stop being victims. But for the black community, this is segregation. This is civil war. It's time for us to focus our efforts on our own institutions. Send your kids for college and university to the HBCUs, because the Supreme Court of the United States has now ruled that right now, affirmative action is canceled. They have canceled affirmative action, which has, again, it's assisted black children, black kids, black youth to be able to have a chance at an education. But the issue is we're getting too dependent and reliant on white American institutions. So allow the immigrant groups who already proclaim themselves to be white Americans, allow them to overwhelm those institutions. But as far as black Americans, HBCU, FAMU, this is your opportunity. Howard, this is your opportunity. If you don't understand unity, if you don't understand solidarity, this is it. And then to actually go rule affirmative action based on the Constitution, where was there diversity when the Constitution was written? Who was in the room? Diversity, there was no inclusion when the Constitution was constructed. So we don't want to hear about diversity and inclusion being a challenge or an obstruction to white Americans and Asian Americans, white Asian Americans, because they are an ally. The United States is in debt. The United States is indebted to Asians. They owe. They are investors. They are stakeholders. So whatever they can do to satisfy the concessions of their stakeholders, to satisfy whatever demands they're making because of their economical share that they have in the United States, they're going to do. And this is one of them. Asian Americans, white Americans get to whining and complaining. And the very processes that they use against black Americans, they are now using in reverse. So you had white Americans able to send their children to colleges and universities historically, lineally, based on wealth, and then created programs for those same white Americans that are disadvantaged to be able to attend college too. And it was all moral then. But now that black Americans have been more conscious of their financial decision making, of their wealth, and now that the internet age, the tech age has allowed opportunity for more black youth to empower themselves with information and knowledge. And now that we know that white Americans are facing scarcity in the world population, their population is actually on a decline. They actually represent less than 1% of the world population globally. Here comes the panic. Here comes the inhumanity. Here comes the uncivilization. So really, this is not a matter of voting. This is a matter of finances, finance, economics. The Supreme Court of the United States has ruled against affirmative action, which means we might as well rule against segregation also, because it's time for us to segregate ourselves. Black Americans need independence. Independence. And this is the perfect opportunity for us to create that for ourselves. INDEPENDENCE. Independence. Because that's what the Supreme Court of the United States is coercing without announcing it. It's a coercion. It's coercive. It's coercion at its finest. So instead of trying to force the hand, let's just play the hand. But don't say don't say that you're ruling against affirmative action based on the Constitution, because in that case, there was no diversity in the room when the Constitution was constructed. So rule against the Constitution and say, if we're going to rule against one, let's rule against it all, because that's the source. The Constitution was written by racist, bigoted, discriminative prejudice, inhumane, uncivilized, barbarian white men. There's historical fact that a black man was in the room, but it wasn't diverse. So don't rule based on diversification, but then not address the origin of where the diversification never existed, which is the Constitution. Let's rule against the Constitution. Let the Constitution be annulled as well, rewritten, reconstructed. But this is nothing. This is a sign, and this is an alarm to all black Americans. It's time to solidify. It's time to be that monolith and choose us. Independence. Segregation. Fueling. Nourishing our own construct, our own institutions. How asinine of the Supreme Court of the United States. How deceiving and deceptive. And how barbaric. These are barbarians at work. And this is the fundamental origin of the United States. Barbarianism, uncivilization.